Guys, and once again, you are welcome to my channel, Literature Made Simple, where we are going to be going through different journeys, through different parts of literature in English. I will pick different exciting topics and discuss them and allow you to share your views and your opinions on it. In our last video, I discussed the meaning of literature where I tried to explore certain definitions given by certain authorities and when I also think about it. Then I try to look at what I prefer to call the forms of literature. Building on that, today I want to look at the types of literature. Literature can be subcategorized into three different types according to my understanding or what I prefer to look at. Types here, I sometimes call it the genres or the genres of literature. So today we'll go through the types of literature, specifically one of the types. Now, if you look on the screen, there are three types of literature, and they are prose, drama, and poetry. In the next few coming days, we'll explore into details, preferably, these types of literature. When you read from other sources, other authorities prefer to say we have drama, poetry, and fictions. There are different categorizations when it comes to the types of literature. Like I mentioned yesterday, some authorities even prefer to say the types are oral and written literature, and the genres are drama, poetry, fiction. And that's what makes the subject interesting. It's a very subjective subject when we talk about literature as a subject. It's very subjective. Which other way that you see the types of literature to be? At the end, we are going to learn something new. Now, the first type of literature that I want to explore in today's lesson is the prose. What is prose? Looking on my screen, I have prose is a written or spoken language in its ordinary form without metrical structure. This is a simplified definition of prose. Simplified in the sense that when we talk about prose, we are looking at a type of literature that involves simply writing what you think or what you want to write about. You do not add meter like it's in drama. You do not add any kind of structure. You just look at the form. It's simple, ordinary, like the way we write our essays, our letters, our mails. It takes that form. Now we have some features, or I personally identify some features which I'm sure you could read from other places that will help you identify if a piece of writing is prose or if it is prosaic or not. One of such features is that prose is written in chapters and paragraphs. When you pick a prose work or a prosaic work, you will identify that it is in chapters and paragraphs. And let me be quick to mention that in modern day writing, there has been a lot of diversities, a lot of creativities, and you could pick a prose work that you may not find at the beginning being in chapters or paragraphs. Paragraphs in particular, some could appear at some points in verses, in stanzas, but predominantly a prosaic work should be written in chapters and paragraphs. Another feature of a work of prose is that the writer of a prose is called an author or a novelist. The writer of a prose is called an author or a novelist. That is another key feature of a work of prose that I want to bring to your attention. Now, whilst we continue, I'll add a few other ones. Types of prose. This is another point of debate, and I love controversies when it comes to literature because it helps you to express what you feel, like I'm going to do. So, under the types of prose, I have fictional prose, non-fictional prose. I try to add epistolaries and a few others to it. Then, under fictional prose, what does it mean? It simply means a piece of prosaic work that is imaginative, that is not real, that is not based on facts or realities. That's why we call it fiction. So we have different types of fictions. We have science fictions, we have historical fictions, we have different forms of fictions. But if you look at literature as a subject, I have some examples of fictional prose. We have novels. So a novel can be fictional, a novel can be non-fictional. A novel that is fictional is a novel that is based on imagination and creativity. It's a novel whose content, permit me to use whose here, whose content is not real or factual. We also have short stories, we have novellas, we have novelettes. Once the content is not based on anything real, it's fictional. Now, what are the types of fictional prose that we have? Based on my research and what I want to talk about, the types of fictional prose here are allegories. Some people call them allegories, some call it allegories. For the sake of this lecture, I will be using allegories. We have fables, we have epistolary or epistolaries. Now, what is an allegory? An allegory is a fictional story. In this case, because we can have allegories that are non-fictional, an allegory is a fictional story that can be interpreted in two different ways, or that is prone to more than one interpretation. A good example is George's Animal Farm, George Orwell's Animal Farm. If you read the book Animal Farm, the main characters are animals like the pig, the horse, and the rest. And these animals were given unique roles that they played. That of the pig being the leader, but that is the surface meaning. The surface meaning of Animals Farm is that it's a farm that has been headed by humans who mistreated or maltreated the animals. And at the end of the day, the animals decided that they were going to rebel. There was a rebellion. And the animals took over the farm, drove the humans away. That is the surface meaning of this story. There's a deeper meaning to it, which is a political story, which looks at revolution by a group that has been suppressed by the other group, where you look at the hierarchies in the human society, where we have the upper class middle class and the lower class, or I should say we have the bourgeoisies and the proletariats. So the lower class decided, that is symbolically represented by the animals who are suppressed, who do most of the works, whilst the upper class are in the offices because they are the rulers and the rest, and they rebel or they revolt. So that is, pictorially, that is what an allegory is all about. An allegory could be a poem, it could be a drama or anything, but I'm looking at it as a fictional prose where the story is presented to you, you read, you get the surface meaning of the story, but there's a deeper version of this same story that you have to think deep to understand. We also have fables. Fables are similar to allegories. The only difference is that with fables, the main feature is animals are used as characters. So, same way George Orwell's Animal Farm, the main characters in the story are animals. Animals are given roles to play. Animals are made to act as humans. Then we say that story is fable. Now, uh, fable and allegory in this case are fictional because you can imagine an animal flying an airplane, or back to Animal Farm again, an animal speaking and ruling over other animals, an animal having the potential of driving human away to take over a farm, select their leaders, go for meetings. These are not real. Animals may have their speech, they may be able to speak, but as presented in Animal Farm, it's not real. It's fictional, it's imaginary. So that's why I'm calling it a type of fictional prose. We have epistolary. Epistolary simply means epistle, compilation of letters. So it's a fictional prose where a writer decides to compile different letters written into a book. I think one good example is Pamela. Pamela, I think by Shakespeare or someone, excuse me, there. Pamela is a book that contains different letters that an imaginary lover wrote to his lover, and but couldn't deliver them, and it was later compiled into a book. Now it's fictional because it's not based on reality. These are emotions that this person imagined to have been expressed between him and the lover, a woman who hasn't even been aware that anyone of that sort has that kind of feeling for her. So they were not real. They were not things that were really done, even though the story suggested like sometimes they go on a walk and they have fun and the rest. So these are three good types of fictional prose that I try to bring to your attention. But let me be quick to mention that the categorization that I've always mentioned vary from person to person, from authority to authority. Again, the types of fictional prose are not limited to what I'm presenting to you here. No, there may be more than that. Now, the last part of today's lecture is going to look at non-fictional prose. What does it mean? Non-fictional prose is basically the direct opposite of fictional prose. Direct opposite of fictional prose in the sense that it is based on stories that are not real. It is based on stories that are not factual. It is based on non-fictional prose are stories that are real, that are factual, that involves real life events that a writer decides to record. Actual life events that a writer decides to record, we call them non-fictional. Non-fictional because they are not imaginary, they are real. Now, we have some types of non-fictional prose work that I want to bring to your attention. We have biography or biographies. autobiography or autobiographies, memos, historical narratives, etc. Now, a biography is the life history of an individual written by another person. We have famous people that are living and that have lived. So, assuming you know any of them, Martin Luther King Jr., Frankenstein, and you decide to write their life story and publish it, that is a biography. Now, an autobiography, like the name suggests, is auto, A-U-T-O, biography. An autobiography is a type of story that involves the life history of someone that has been written by the person himself. So if I write my life history and publish it, that is an autobiography. It's my own life story written by myself. Memos. I think one good example of an autobiography that I should mention has to do with Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's a good example. She wrote a poem titled Caged Bird. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to a novel he wrote titled I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's a good example of an autobiography. There's another drama titled A Risen in the Sun. Even though it's dramatic, it's also autobiography. And even though I'm talking about prose, it's worth mentioning. Now, memos are also historical events, just like historical narratives. But the main difference between a memo and a historical narrative is this. Memos are historical events that have been recorded by someone who took part in the event. There is a historical event. I witnessed it. I recorded the proceedings or the entire event in the form of a novel or a short story. That is a non-fictional prose called memo. But a historical event that I didn't take part in, I read about it or someone narrated it for me to write about, is called historical narrative. I think one of the most recent historical events I want to mention is the COVID-19 pandemic that took the world by surprise. That storm, I was part of it. I witnessed it. I experienced it. I saw people die. I saw people I knew that died out of COVID. So if I decide to write a book about COVID-19, that's a memo because I'm recording a historical event that I took part in. But if I want to write about, for example, I'm a Ghanaian, the independence of Ghana that took place in 1957, I wasn't born by then. Therefore, I didn't witness that. So if I want to write about that event, I'll have to rely on narrations. I'll have to rely on different sources that I'll read from to gather the information I need to write. So that will be qualified to be classified as historical narrative. There may be a lot of other types of non-fictional prose, but these are the ones that I want to bring to your attention. Thank you for the audience. Our next meeting, I'll be looking at another type of literature, which is drama. That's what I'll look at in our next episode. There is something I didn't talk about under prose, that is the element of prose. I'll look at the element of prose when I'm done with drama because some of the elements interlock. So what I'll do is, after explaining the concept of drama to you and the unique elements that are limited to only drama, then I'll now combine similar elements of prose and drama. Thank you. See you another time. Goodbye.